Okay, thank you everybody so much for coming this evening. Obviously, we've had a few little bits of bobs there. It's the first time we've done it in this format, so thank you for your patience, everybody in the room and everybody in the other rooms, which I can't see. So thank you. So like I say, good evening, everybody, and welcome to 2024 SLL Young Lighter Final. I'm Christina Allison, the SLL President-elect, and it is my absolute pleasure to host today's final here in London. Joining me are my esteemed colleagues. Online we heard Brendan Keeley in Edinburgh, David Battersby in Leeds, and Chris Dix in Oxford. Together, we're excited to witness the incredible innovation and talent on display tonight. The Young Lighter competition offers a distinctive platform for emerging talents in the industry. Through their presentations, these young lighters showcase their expertise, research on various lighting topics, refine their presentation skills, and elevate their professional profiles within the industry. I'm delighted to announce that the competition continues to flourish, and we're now celebrating our 13th year, which is amazing. The competition process begins with participants submitting a PowerPoint presentation of their topic or paper. Those who advance to the second round are then required to create a short video blog and develop their PowerPoint presentation, allowing them to further demonstrate their ideas and their concept. The judging panel then selects the finalists, who each have 15 minutes to present their papers, which we'll hear today. The winner of the Young Lighter 2024 will be announced at Lighter Perform 24, which will take place on the 13th of November at the Excel in London. Each finalist will receive a cash prize of £250 and a year's membership to the SLL. The overall winner will be awarded an additional £1,000 cash prize and earn the prestigious title of SLL Young Lighter 2024. Once again, the standard of application was exceptionally high this year, making the judges' task quite challenging, as the judges in the room will know. I'm pleased to announce that we have 4 outstanding finalists here for you to listen to today. Okay, so in Edinburgh, we have Kate Turley from Chroma Lighting presenting her paper, a tailored dynamic lighting of sensing. I'm going to start that again. This is her paper, it's only fair. A tailored dynamic lighting and sensing paradigm to support wellbeing for people living with dementia. In Leeds, we have Sam Walker from OBS Lighting Consultants presenting his paper, Observe, interactive education platform. In London, we have Tammy Julleekeea from DPA Lighting Consultants presenting her paper, Re-illuminating the Waters, Protecting Ecosystem Beyond the Surface Level. And in Oxford, we have Jess Keates from Turley presenting her paper, Beyond the Line, applying our understanding of the effects of spatial frequency contrast on visual discomfort. I'm now going to hand over to Brendan Keeley. Over to you, Bren.
Thank you, Christina. Greetings from Edinburgh. I'm delighted to be here with our first of the 4 finalists, Kate Turley. Kate is with Chroma Lighting, and her paper is a tailored lighting and sensing paradigm to support well-being for people living with dementia. Kate Turley is a PhD researcher working in collaboration with both industrial and academic partners. While training for her BSc in geophysics, Kate took a keen interest in programming and computing, which fostered her understanding of the Internet of Things. While undertaking a 2-year knowledge transfer partnership with Chroma Lighting and Ulster University, Kate helped design and develop an integrated lighting and sensing device to support the well-being of people living with dementia. The IoT architecture has created the potential for deep diving into the underlying relationship between light and well-being for people with dementia. As such, Kate began a PhD in 2023, which continues to explore this topic and has since been awarded an industrial fellowship by the Royal Commission for the exhibition of 1851 to support the research. Kate has published several outputs at IEEE, that one is INSTIC, conferences presenting her work on the intersecting fields of lighting, dementia, computing, and IoT. Kate's work has been recognised with several international awards, including Best PhD Project, Best Interdisciplinary Research, and the Emerging Scholar Award between 2021 and 2024. And I have nothing more to say other than, Kate, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brendan, for the generous introduction. And I'm really happy to be here tonight at SLL Young Lighter. So I will begin my idea by giving a little bit of context to the background for the idea. So everyone in this room will be familiar with dementia for some reason or other. 1 in 3 of us born today will go on to develop dementia. And people who are living with dementia have more disrupted circadian rhythms than that of the typical adult in terms of its alignment to the light-dark 24-hour cycle. And there are several reasons for this. One of the main reasons is age. So there is a 7% prevalence of dementia over the age of 65. And as we know, the aging eye yellows, the pupil contracts, and the capacity for absorption of light becomes less. Alongside this, people who are living with dementia have a buildup of abnormal plaques in the brain, which cause cognitive decline. On top of this, the aging population experience a suppression in the ratio of melatonin to cortisol, melatonin being the darkness hormone which encourages sleep. And if we take all of this information together, knowing that sleep is a restorative process that actually helps to mop up some of these plaques in the brain, it becomes really important to understand how light can influence the circadian rhythm back to align this 24-hour light-dark cycle so that we can help improve their well-being and alleviate some of their symptoms. And so I want to be able to monitor the impact, but we need to focus on the relationship between light and well-being at an individual level, because there are a lot of parameters that influence the response to lighting, particularly for people who are living with dementia. Some of these include their age, gender, state of progression of dementia, their chronotype, and their previous lighting histories. And so monitoring well-being nowadays, I'm sure we'll all be familiar with our Apple Watches that can monitor our rest activity and our sleep-wake cycles. And so sensors within the last decade have become the primary way of monitoring well-being for this cohort. But within the cohort of people living with dementia, because they are a vulnerable category, it's really tricky to navigate involving sensing devices within this cohort, especially with something that's on their wearable. So people who are living with dementia can actually get more agitated by having something on their person. And actually, they need to remember to wear the device, they need to remember to charge the device, and it needs to be calibrated. So we need to find ways to understand the response to their lighting exposure by using sensing modalities that promote longitudinal sensing and don't actually increase their agitation. And so here's my problem statement for the SLL Young Lighter. Dementia is a rapidly growing disease without a cure. And integrative lighting, as termed by the most recent SLL position statement, in terms of the indoor environment, could prove a positive way to, to support their body clocks, but we don't know enough about their inter-individual effect. And this is in part due to 2 reasons. One is due to the difficulty in longitudinally monitoring this cohort, particularly as daylight availability changes throughout the year in winter and summer. We need to have at least multi-scale monitoring of this cohort so we can understand the relationship between light and well-being. But another is that it's because there's so many parameters that influence the response to lighting, particularly for people living with dementia, it becomes really difficult to separate cause and effect. And so the idea that I'm putting forward to the SLL tonight is that I want to be able to understand how integrative lighting, particularly in the indoor environment, because this is where we spend 90% of our time, can support the body clock and well-being of people living with dementia by gathering as much information as possible on all the parameters that influence this. So this includes the lighting parameters, the circadian related metrics such as their sleep wake, their rest activity and falls, but also their demographic and diagnostic information. And in theory, all of this idea will contribute to the aim of better lighting design for well-being for their future. And so where do we start with this? It has to be with the luminaire requirements. Because we self-profess that we don't know enough about integrative lighting for this cohort, we don't know the spectral content, the timing, and the exposure duration that is prime for exciting their IPRGCs and suprachiasmatic nucleus, and which influences the circadian rhythm and therefore their rest activity and sleep-wake cycles. We need to be able to create lighting that is scalable. So here you will see an example of some of my preliminary work on this, where we have quadrant LED boards that are 2-channel, tunable white, dimmable LEDs, which means that at any time you can change the color temperature and the intensity of the output. Alongside this, we need to start delivering lighting that has a high melanopic ratio, which means that it's easier to deliver lighting that will stimulate those short wavelength peak response IPRGCs that influence the circadian rhythms and influence those rest activity and sleep-wake cycles for people living with dementia. So from the outset, we need to, within care homes, deploy lighting that is scalable from the outset, because as we self-profess that we don't know enough, if we have a scalable light fit-in, once we find out enough information, it's easy to push these insights into the light fit-in and create that lighting once we understand more about the relationship. And so here I have a big umbrella on the slide that says wellbeing. And this is just to show that wellbeing is a really vague term. So specifically within this presentation, I'm talking about circadian related wellbeing, because when we talk about wellbeing for people living with dementia, it can also contribute to financial well-being, whether or not they have the capacity to make their own decisions. We know that lighting isn't going to influence this. Specifically to this talk, we're talking about circadian related metrics and how we can influence this with lighting. So we're looking at requirements such as rest activity, sleep wake, and fall detections. And these are the sort of things that we want to be able to monitor. And so here's an example of within that luminaire that I showed you earlier, there was a central armature with a sensor in the middle. As I said before, we don't want to have wearable devices on this cohort because it increases agitation and there's too much at play there. If you have a sensing device within a light fitting that's deployed to the ceiling, it's therefore encouraging this longitudinal sensing because there's very little on the client side that needs to be done. It's a passive sensitive device, but it's also high resolution. So from some of my preliminary work, I have a millimeter wave sensor within a light fit-in that basically tracks a person with dementia's movement in both X, Y, and Z translation axes. And the Z component actually means that you can get a depth from the sensor, which means that common symptoms such as an increase in falls with an increase in cognitive decline can also be monitored over time. So here you can see it's unobtrusive in the sense that it's not a camera. You can't see the limb detections or anything like that. You can't depict a person's character from, it's not like a camera. It's essentially tracking a 3D point over time, frame by frame. So you can still get information such as when someone's sitting, when someone's standing, when someone's had a fall because you have the acceleration and the velocity movements, when someone's pacing in a circle. And if you apply domain knowledge to this and do this at certain times of the day, you can get information on whether a person with dementia has left bed at night, how many times they've done this, and the length of time this has occurred for. So the idea is to have all of this information within one light fit-in again. So it looks like a light fit-in. It doesn't induce paranoia for a person living with dementia, but within this there's a Bluetooth module. So I'm sure a few of you in the room will be familiar with Kasambi. It's a Bluetooth mesh network that makes luminaires and sensors all talk together. If you have a Bluetooth module within the sensor and a Bluetooth low energy gateway in the care home, it's a really simple solution that allows us to access all of the lighting information and all of the sensor information over the network. So we get this this output of spectral content, intensity, correlated color temperature, but we also have Bluetooth switches. So we know when the lights are on and we know when they're off. So we know what their exposure is throughout the day. So essentially you can create a curve of their lighting dosage, whether it's in the last 24 hours or the last 3 months, and also compare this to the metrics that we've had on their circadian related well-being. So compare their lighting dose to their rest activity and their sleep wake patterns. And we can do this on an individual basis, dependent on their trajectory within their own rooms, within their own light fittings. So we know whether or not that a person who experiences more short wavelength lighting in the afternoon, for example, experiences better sleep at night. And we can create relationships based on this from the data that we collect. The communication pathway that we have here essentially creates this IoT architecture where, again, we self-profess that with integrative lighting, we don't know enough, particularly for the aging population and also people living with dementia. And so when we have all this data that we can harvest back between the lighting, the sensing information, and on the client side, if we can get demographic and diagnostic information, we essentially grow this database with all this information because we know there's so many parameters that impact the response to lighting. But if we get all that information there, then us as data scientists, us as chronobiologists, us as lighting designers, architects, we can all delve into this database and try to understand what some of the underlying relationships are, whether it's on a group level between people who have Alzheimer's disease, people who have more severe dementia, or whether it's on an individual basis. And because we have that pathway that goes back out to the lighting, through a simple lighting API, because I showed you that scalable light fitting earlier that changes in color temperature and changes in intensity, once we do find those insights, it's just a bit of software. All we have to do is push that back out to the lighting API, talks to the driver, and talks to the LEDs. And so this is some of my preliminary work. As Brenda mentioned earlier, I'm essentially a software developer working for a light and design company. And so I've done a lot of work on the design and development of this IoT solution. And what I've done here is created, with Knowledge Domain, we have an ongoing pilot study in a care home in Belfast at the minute. And we've deployed this technology and we're monitoring the impact of this lighting on people who are living with dementia. And I've created activity metrics that do give us insight on a 15-minute interval of when they're at rest, when they have the most activity. And again, I've also done nighttime metrics. So I've identified the bed location in every room, entry exit points, the frequency and duration of leaves at night. So again, this is to give us scientists information of how lighting is impacting this response, but also in the caregiver side of things, it's given information that we can then project to them on a dashboard and help them relieve some of their strain when they're delivering care throughout the week. And this is a laugh for some people. This is my lab at home, which essentially is just given another example of the depth penetration or depth penetrating aspect of the sensor. So yes, we have those XY translations and we know whether someone's under the kitchen light, the living room light, where they're spending most time. But because of that, and unobtrusively, again, most of these things are normally done during wearables, but we can demonstrate a really good example of getting fall detection from an unobtrusive sensor within a light fitting again. And again, on top of that, better integrative lighting for the well-being of people living with dementia. These type of metrics also contribute to the care staff side of things. So we can sort of have a two birds, one stone approach. And here is sort of an example of everything I've mentioned earlier in the slides, so an Internet of Things feedback. So for example, if we have two neighboring residents in room 1, room 2, one has experienced wandering at night or purposeful walking, one has experienced a fall. And what happens is all there is in their room is what looks like a light fitting because the diffuser is covering everything inside. And the radar sensor with the algorithms on the edge has picked this up, date and time stamp this, and then we recognize this in our database as what has happened. With the fall, that gets projected straight out to the mobile application for carers, so then they can intervene. With the terms of the nighttime wandering, this then gets stored and analyzed by machine learning algorithms, which then will look at resident 1 and we'll see whether or not the frequency is increasing and compare that to the lighting output that they've had. With our pilot study, we know what the spectral output of the lighting is, but we can then look at how many times the light switches were turned on and off and what their lighting dose was and whether or not this changed, where they're spending most times under which light fittings and whether or not that has impacted these occurrences of nighttime wanderings. And again, with that stage 3 on the diagram here with the backstage or the back communication, because of the Bluetooth mesh and because of that scalable light fitting that we have there, once we do understand, if we have large scale trials, so again, I have one care home in Belfast, but once we have large scale trials across the globe with different daylight availabilities and we gather all of this information, we'll then have enough data that we can make clustering algorithms or linear regression and find out what parameters weigh the most for what person or for the person's response in terms of their rest activity and sleep, and then push certain lighting out to their rooms so that we can say, okay, we'll maybe try 3 hours more of short wavelength lighting in the afternoon and see if that does improve their sleep and go from there. And again, because of this buildup of the database, so on the client side, we get location, latitude, dementia type, state of progression, the demographic and diagnostic information. Our Bluetooth allows us to get the CCT, illuminance, exposure, duration, and spectra. Our millimeter wave sensors allow us to get rest activity, nighttime metrics, falls. All of this information will then get collated. So when we get the interdisciplinary input of different teams like neurobiologists, chronobiologists, lighting designers, architects, if we want to test hypotheses, then the data is there and we build this up so that we do get that better understanding of the relationship between light and well-being for every individual with dementia. And so this is just an example of, on the client side, like how we would gather this information. So it's easy for us with we have the Bluetooth module and we sort of are greedy and we take all this data from the sensors and the luminaires, but on the client side of things, similarly to how a resident with dementia will fill, or their family members will fill out paperwork, if we just give them a mobile application to do the same thing and replicate that information, we get the demographic and diagnostic information. On the right-hand side of the screen, then you can see how this is projected on a dashboard. So yes, we're taking all the information because we want to deep mine that and do data analysis on that and then create better lighting for their well-being. But in the same time, this information is still there. So we can still give that to care staff, tell them that resident A spent 9 hours and 16 minutes in bed last night, tell them when their most active periods are. And again, there's a drop-down box here. This can be live. This can be in the last 24 hours. This can be in the last 3 months. And this is in an effort to relieve some of their strain in terms of planning for the week and knowing what patients to prioritise. And so we'll just end on the final slide here, which don't like to end on a statistics slide, but a workforce burnout report was published in 2021, highlighting that 44% of UK respondents reported stress-related illness, costing the UK economy £2.4 billion. So again, by being able to give these sense and metrics to a dashboard to care staff to help them in their delivery of care, we can make an economic impact. But on the social side of things, once we have all this database and we learn from these insights and we deep dive and use our machine learning algorithms to understand the relationship between light and well-being, we can alleviate some of their symptoms for a disease that does not have a cure at the minute. So it really is critical to do this. And I'll just end on the final note that a fuller understanding of the relationship between light and well-being for people living with dementia will equate to better inclusive design in future and improve their quality of life. So thank you very much. And I think.
Thank you, Kate. What a great start. I'm just going to try and quickly stop sharing before I hand over to.
Thank you, Brendan. Welcome to Leeds, where we have our second paper, Samuel Walker, OBS Lighting Consultant. Observe an interactive educational platform. Samuel began their journey playing rugby, initially believing it would shape their career. However, a career-ending injury forced a major rethink, leading them to pursue a degree in architecture. Excitingly, they discovered a profound passion for lighting design very quickly, which then became the new focus of their professional aspirations. During their studies, Samuel was awarded the prestigious Jonathan Spears Scholarship in 2023, marking a significant achievement as the final recipient in the award's 10-year history. This recognition, fueled by their commitment to the field, where they gained invaluable experience as DPA lighting consultants, contributing to various high-profile projects during their placement year. In 2024, Samuel received further accolades as the recipient of the Silhouette Awards, cementing their status as an emerging talent in the lighting industry. Their particular interest lies in the elimination of light pollution, a topic they are passionate about exploring in depth. This passion led to the creation of OBS Lighting Consultants, a design consultancy dedicated to addressing the pressing issue of light pollution through innovative and sustainable solutions. Samuel continues to push boundaries within the field with a great number of mentors. Samuel is committed to making a lasting impact on the future of lighting design. Over to you, Samuel.
Thank you very much. Good to go. Thank you very much. No, thank you all for coming. That's lovely to see you all and some new faces, and thank you to the SLL as well. So this is Observe. It's a interactive educational platform revealing the beauty of eliminating light pollution, to really looking at changing the narrative on lighting education. So we're really on a quest to reveal the magic that has been robbed from us. So in today's increasingly illuminating world, the need for children spanning key stages 1 to 5 to grasp the topic of light pollution has never been more critical. Not only is light pollution a pervasive global issue with known solutions, it's the only sustainable problem we comprehend on a global scale. There are some really scary statistics on the screen there that I think are worth sharing with you all. 55% of the UK have never seen the Milky Way, and more than 80% of humanity is affected by light pollution. And 99% of the Americans and Europeans live under sky glow. So for me, it's really concerning that light pollution isn't included in education for key stages 1 to 5. Because unlike other global sustainable issues, such as greenhouse gases, despite being a problem with known solutions, it's overlooked until higher education. And I think this gap misses a chance to instill environmental awareness and empower young minds from an early stage. So just to further exemplify, light pollution is pollution. Globally, we spend at least $50 billion in energy costs each year to produce light that escapes into space. Light emissions from the continents represents 246,238 gigawatts of hours of energy. Now, in 2016, the World Atlas of Night Sky Brightness revealed that over 80% of the world's population, including 99% of Europeans and Americans, live under sky glow. Now, this is an issue that is, most pronounced in highly developed regions such as North America, Europe, and parts of Asia, with countries like Singapore and Qatar being among the most light polluted. And this is an impact of the artificial light that extends beyond the sky. It disrupts circadian rhythms in both humans and animals, leading to sleep deprivation and associated health issues, including increased cancer risk due to reduced melatonin levels. Now, to showcase the untapped learning potential, light pollution is unique in the sense that we do possess the knowledge and the technology to solve it. Unlike other complex problems such as global warming, the reduction of light pollution is a feasible goal within our reach. Despite this, children who are frequently educated about climate change and greenhouse gases receive little to no education on light pollution. Now, I think, as many of you will agree, this is a massively missed opportunity, as educating the younger generation could significantly reduce light pollution in the future. I think an interesting statistic there is if even 30% of children were educated on this issue, we could see a substantial reduction in light pollution within the next 2 decades. This could lead to positive effects on human health, wildlife, and energy consumption. I think it's quite interesting to showcase a before and after. We're looking at the current situation on light pollution education with university educators, lighting professionals, and postgraduate students. And implementing Observe into, Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 5 education. This is what we could look at for the outreach and exposure on light pollution education, expanding to local community and council, secondary school teachers, special ed teachers, A-level sixth form teachers, children in key stages 1 to 5, and many more. Now, what's the approach? So the strategy to introduce Observe into schools involves a multi-phased approach designed to engage and inspire children across various educational stages. Workshops, quizzes, interactive games, mentorships, a diverse amount of courses, blogs and industry insights. By leveraging innovative digital tools and captivating content, we aspire to spark curiosity and foster a deep understanding of this pressing environmental issue among students. Our overarching goal is to ignite a grassroots movement of awareness and advocacy, ultimately lobbying for light pollution to become a compulsory topic within school curriculum. I think that's key. We're looking at discovering the lost beauty through 3 main topics: nature, heritage, and inspiration. Students will explore the beauty that lies in eliminating light pollution by framing the discussion around positivity. We aim to engage students more effectively, encouraging them to view the issue not as a problem, but as an opportunity for positive change. For example, under the heritage topic, students will learn about the cultural significance of preserving the night sky, connecting with rich history and traditions associated with stargazing and overall navigation. In the nature topic, students will discover the profound impact on reducing light pollution on ecosystems and wildlife, fostering a sense of appreciation and stewardship of the natural world. And finally, the inspiration topic. Students will be inspired by countless scientific discoveries and artistic creations inspired by the beauty of the night sky. By highlighting the positive aspects of addressing light pollution, we aim to ignite students' curiosity and enthusiasm, empowering them to become agents of positive change in their communities and beyond. So, to actually showcase the benefits of interactive learning, research actually shows that 80% of Gen Z students prefer learning through digital platforms that allow for active engagement, such as quizzes, simulations, and real-time feedback. The methods cater to their shorter attention spans and desire for instant gratification, significantly boosting retention rates by up to 60% compared to traditional lecturers. Additionally, incorporating interactive elements into education has been found to enhance problem-solving skills and creativity, with actually 75% of students reporting higher engagement levels when using digital tools. Now, the 3 key stages: changing the narrative on lighting education, primary, secondary, and sixth form. Understanding the night sky's natural beauty across all key stages is truly fundamental for the children and young adults to appreciate and protect the environment. By learning through these key topics, the students will develop a deep respect for the night sky and will be motivated to combat light pollution, ensuring a brighter, star-filled future for all. As the key stages increase, the levels and the depth of each topic will become more complex. As I've said before, nature, heritage, and inspiration. So nature. Educating children around natural darkness is vital for ecosystems, as many species rely on the night for migration, feeding, and reproduction. Reducing light pollution helps restore balance in nature, protecting wildlife and maintaining biodiversity. Heritage. The night sky has connected cultures for centuries, serving as source of navigation, storytelling, and timekeeping. By reducing light pollution, we preserve this shared human heritage, allowing future generations to experience the same starry skies that inspired our ancestors. And finally, inspiration. A dark, star-filled sky sparks wonder and curiosity, fueling creativity and scientific exploration. Eliminating light pollution can inspire children to look up, dream, and explore the mysteries of the universe. Now, primary, ages 7 to 11. Through interactive games, we aim to inspire and begin to foster early awareness of light pollution, empowering children to become advocates for sustainable lighting practices, shaping a healthier future for all. Some examples included in the primary ages is Star Catcher game, for example. The students play as a character who collects visible stars, gradually polluted by light. The goal is to navigate through levels, each with a different environment, for example, city, countryside, and to try and collect as many stars as possible before light pollution makes them disappear. Very simple, very fun, and very engaging. And wildlife at night. Students help nocturnal animals like owls, bats, and foxes navigate their environment by controlling the amount of artificial light. The game will demonstrate the challenges these animals face due to light pollution, really showcasing that it is an issue, but it can be eliminated, and the positive aspects that come from it are very inspiring. And on to secondary, the ages 11 to 16. The interactive games and workshops for secondary students focus on making learning about light pollution both engaging and practical. The games are designed to immerse students in scenarios where they can explore the impacts of light pollution, encouraging critical thinking and decision making. Through 2 examples here, Save the Turtles. Students will save the turtles from obtrusive lights coming from the highway. By eliminating light pollution, they are able to get the turtles back to the ocean. And exploring constellations and their myths, a workshop where students research different constellations, their origins in various cultures, and how these stories have been passed down through generations. They can create presentations or digital storytelling projects to share their findings. And finally, sixth form, ages 16 to 19. So this is operating on a bit more depth, and the simulations included within the sixth form will be, to allow the students to engage with detailed scenarios, such as managing ecosystems or designing urban environments with sustainable lighting solutions. It's to challenge them at further level. Advanced interactive simulations and games are powerful tools for sixth form students to explore and understand the complexities of light pollution. And another example of what would be included is urban planning for sustainable cities. It's an urban planning simulation that challenges students to design a city with sustainable lighting solutions. Now, we really are on a mission with this. Following from the various exemplified modules, lesson types and games and quizzes, here are a solidified mission. Our mission is to illuminate the minds of future generations and the pressing issue of light pollution. If we're focusing on engaging and educating children from key stage 1 to 5, as light pollution continues to increase, its detrimental effects on wildlife, human health, and our ability to experience the natural night sky is becoming increasingly alarming. Yet the conversation often excludes a crucial audience, children, who, empowered with knowledge and awareness, have the potential to drive significant change in the coming decades. We believe that true change in the lighting industry must begin with the education. While much of the focus has traditionally been on policymakers and industry leaders, we argue that children are equally vital audience. They are the future engineers, designers, and citizens who will shape our towns and societies. By educating them now, we ensure that the next wave of decision makers will prioritise sustainable, responsible lighting practices that protect our environment and our well-being. Our mission is to shine light on the overlooked issue, instilling in children the knowledge and passion needed to advocate for a world where light is used wisely and with respect for all living things. So together we can build a better future, one that preserves the beauty and integrity of our night skies for generations to come. Now, we all know Paulina. For young people born in the 21st century, the world's problems can seem overwhelming. We are immersed in a massive avalanche of information, with catastrophic data constantly reminding us of the challenges ahead: climate change, light pollution, mass extinctions. But for 21st century people, the key to action is hope. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, we need to shift the narrative towards the positive. We must promote a collective mission, an adventure to rescue and recover what has been lost: the stars, nature, the magical light of nocturnal life, the birds, the fireflies. I couldn't agree more. And also a familiar face, Katia. Katia is someone who, along with Paulina, is very interested in collaborating and is also, with her work, completely parallel with the mission. Sam's Observe initiative focuses on educating kids and students about light pollution aligns perfectly with our mission. We are excited to explore. It's all about how we raise awareness and educate the children. Now, just to go back to the importance of changing the narrative around lighting education. It's all about how traditionally the focus has been on professionals and university students, leaving younger generations unaware of light pollution's impacts. But now, the future stewards of the environment, the children, they must learn. They must learn to make the informed decisions and reduce its effects. Rather than focusing solely on the negative impacts, we should teach them the beauty of reducing light pollution, such as preserving dark skies, protecting ecosystems, and saving energy. By incorporating this into the curriculum, we can inspire a new generation to lead in creating a sustainable, well-lit world. And finally, just to conclude, our comprehensive online educational platform focused on light pollution stands to benefit students across all stages of education, from primary to sixth form, by offering a diverse range of resources, including in-person workshops and interactive games. Our platform provides students with a dynamic learning experience that fosters engagement and empowers them to make a positive impact on the world around them. By being the first to introduce students to the one global issue that we know how to solve, we are not only equipping them with the knowledge and the skills to address light pollution, but also instilling in them a sense of agency and responsibility as future stewards of the planet. Through our innovative approach to education, we aspire to inspire and empower the next generation to embrace the challenge of light pollution with enthusiasm and optimism, paving the way for a brighter, more sustainable future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. I'll now hand back to Christina in London.
Thank you very much, David, and welcome everybody back to London. Thank you very much for listening to all these lovely presentations we're receiving tonight. So this is great. So now we have our third paper from Tammy, who's here with us in the Hawley office in London, presenting her paper, Re-illuminating the Waters, Protecting Ecosystems Beyond Surface Levels. So, Tammy's interest in lighting started during her time at Brunel University, where she completed a year-long placement of the London-based consultancy. I think we know that is. This experience provided her with a deep dive into the industry. It was here that she developed a keen fascination into the dynamic relationship between light, space, and user experience. After graduating in 2022 with a BA in Industrial Design and Technology, Tammy returned to the same consultancy to begin her professional journey within the lighting industry. Over the past year, she has continued to refine her skills as a lighting designer within the DPA office in Oxford. Tammy has since worked on several projects, but it was her involvement in the marine vessel project where she became increasingly interested in the effects of artificial light on the natural world. As she continues in her career, Tammy is driven to create lighting designs that are not only visually compelling and highly functional, but also environmentally conscious. So, Tammy, over to you.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming today. So,
Perfect.
okay, so today I'm here to talk to you about a very understudied and all-pervasive problem within the lighting industry, which is artificial light's presence in our oceans. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, some of you may start to gain an understanding of how lighting practitioners can utilise current and emerging technology to curate more eco-sensitive lighting designs. Nowadays, the industry is heavily focused on protecting terrestrial and coastal ecosystems. Artificial light's impact on wildlife such as bats, plants, insects, and birds have been very well studied. The industry has even gone so far to developing technology to solve these issues, such as bug-saving technology and shielded light. However, the impacts on marine wildlife have not yet been brought to focus. It's not until we see images like this one from NASA that we can start to understand the outreach that anthropogenic light has in our oceans, an environment that should be naturally shrouded in darkness come nighttime. About 2 million square kilometres of the ocean are directly impacted by artificial light at night. However, it is predicted that artificial light can reach far beyond these measured depths. We are also currently in a design culture where we tend to prioritise aesthetics over ecological practicality. Here we can see a very good example of an overlit cruise ship, which has an array of lighting spanning various levels of the colour spectrum. Each light can penetrate the ocean to different depths, disrupting marine wildlife by masking the natural luminance of the night sky. To begin designing for the marine environment, we must first define the natural luminance on the sea surface. Moonlight, though not emitted from the moon itself, is the primary source of nocturnal illumination for aquatic species and tends to range from about 0.1 to 0.3 lux depending on the moon's phase. The nocturnal illumination can disrupt marine wildlife by masking its natural biological rhythms. So to consider the natural nighttime light on the sea surface, we should also consider the natural nighttime light what affects marine organisms. So this is something called diel vertical migration, which is what zooplankton go through on a daily basis. Zooplankton rely on lunar cycles heavily because they're very sensitive to light. And they use nocturnal illumination, they use natural nighttime light to guide them from deep to near surface waters throughout the day. So zooplankton can use natural illumination to, natural nocturnal illumination to, for example, in areas such as the polar Arctic, which they are highly attuned to lunar pattern due to minimal light changes because the winters are very long. And sorry.
Sorry, it's not working.
No, I'm just.
You want to use the keyboard?
Sorry, yeah.
Is that where you want to go? Or-
Yeah, let's just go back.
There you go.
So, as I was saying, sorry, natural nighttime light does affect marine organisms, particularly those at the lower end of the food chain, like zooplankton, who are highly sensitive to light. And they go through something called diel vertical migration, which is the largest biomass migration on Earth. This biomass migration on Earth. And sorry, I can't.
Sorry, you're expecting something to happen.
It's okay. Just carry on. So these disruptions can have cascading effects up the food chain. Starting at the lower end of the food chain with primary consumers and producers, additional light at night can stimulate photosynthesis, which adds excess energy into the food chain. And this can also create prey availability. This can affect prey availability. And this causes an imbalance of chemical and physical processes. Moving up the food chain to secondary consumers like fish, who are affected as predators start to gain a visual advantage. And then right at the top of the food chain, tertiary consumers, which are higher level predators, face shifts in feeding behaviours and prey availability. For example, in the polar Arctic, seals have been observed to use artificial light at night to hunt fish. Understanding the varying wavelengths of the colour spectrum are essential to enable effective design choices. As many of us, I'm sure, are aware, blue light, which is typically used in LED technology, can penetrate the ocean to deeper depth due to its being rich in short wavelengths. You can see that white and green light share the same behaviour. In contrast, warm hues such as red, purple, and yellow light are mostly absorbed by the sea surface due to their shorter wavelength. The light intrusion within the marine environment is when light is directed from offshore sites and vessels down into the water column. In terrestrial environment, light that does not go above the horizontal plane is considered shielded. However, in marine settings, light can still reflect off the water's surface due to its saline levels and natural movement, and this can cause light to scatter into new directional paths. Studies have shown that oil rigs that use flood lighting can extend illumination 100 meters past the rig itself, which causes unnecessary and harmful light spill. Maritime weather conditions can greatly amplify light reflection and scatter at sea. Factors like excess beam spread, refractions, and reflections can cause greater illumination, as we can see here. The main weather conditions include fog, wind, and snow. For example, fog, which is consisted of tiny water droplets suspended in the air, can create diffuse illumination and extended beam spread. Wind, which can alter the temperatures, the water's temperature and saline levels. Saline levels can cause changes in the water's refractive index. This, along with increased wave activity, can cause light to scatter further, just because the light can scatter at very small angles due to this. And this can also cause reduced visibility. And then we have snow showers. In the polar Arctic, snow showers are very common due to the very cold conditions, and snow crystals do reflect light far more than water droplets. During periods of heavy snowfall, scattering can become a lot more significant. Finally, existing navigation and safety parameters were also considered and should be considered when designing for marine vessels in the environment. According to the International Association of Lighthouse Authorities, 3 colours must be used to ensure the safety of vessels. So as we can see from the diagram, red and green light, which is located on the left and right hand side of a vessel, ensures that a vessel remains visible if another seacraft is approaching head on or from either side. We then have a white light, which is located at the masthead, and this is required for any vessel under engine power. If a vessel is over 50 meters in length, 2 masthead lights are required. And then finally, another white light is located at the rear of the vessel, also known as the aft. This ensures that seacraft remains visible if another vessel is approaching from behind. So we are now in an era where we have access to advanced technology that allows us to address these challenges. From the research I conducted for this project, I created 3 key lighting targets to best support lighting practitioners during the design phase. The first being smart lighting responses. This is all about utilising timers and dimmers to create specific and tailored lighting schemes. Ecosystem sensitive design, which includes adjusting light intensity and colour spectrum to be more compatible with marine species. And finally, purpose-driven design. This ensures that lighting serves specific functions, such as navigation and safety, without over-illuminating areas. So this very interesting piece of technology is something called the VPR, which stands for Video Plankton Recorder. Marine scientists in the US have essentially developed an underwater video microscope that rapidly captures images of plankton in specific areas. The recorder works by being dropped down into the ocean. It can reach down to about 250 meters in depth, and that's the maximum depth, and is towed behind a research vessel. And then what happens is the migration data is recorded. This allows for quick assessment of scattering and abundance of plankton in specific areas and over a 24-hour period. So why am I talking to you about this random piece of technology? Well, what I propose is a pairing of VPR technology, and which calls migratory data, and lighting control systems. This would allow us to adjust light intensity and colour spectrum according to migration patterns in specific areas. So this workflow just aims to demonstrate how the migration data can be integrated into a cruise ship's control system. This would be particularly beneficial for offshore sites that remain in fixed locations and cruise ships that operate along chartered routes. So just to explain the workflow, First, we would have the plankton migratory data that's been derived from the VPR. This would be sent by a marine scientist vessel. And then this would be then sent to an on-site cruise ship control system that reads that migratory data. Migration data is subject to change just due to season and weather patterns. So there's been an update that's been allowed for within the workflow. Virtual calculations then calculate the times the lighting should provide a response. And then these calculations are sent to an automatic digital timer within the ship's control system. Finally, the information is then sent to the DALI DT8 lighting drivers for the cruise ship's lighting promenades. And then we end up with two outputs, two lighting responses that either dims the lighting up and down or changes the colour or the colour temperature. Obviously, these two lighting responses can be done in conjunction to one another. So by integrating data like the migration data in the control system shown, we would not only create lighting schemes that are effective, but also environmentally responsible. Lighting solutions should also comply with safety and legal requirements, whilst minimising environmental impact. Here we can see an overview of ocean lighting regulations for various ocean structures. Whilst insights into regulations can be very valuable, each case does require a unique solution. Lighting designers, however, can inform approaches that best align with these regulations. For example, we could suggest flashing light with flashing lights using lights that have low flash rates instead of slow burning ones, and then also avoiding large floodlights, instead using lighting that is specific to the nighttime needs of a certain vessel or structure. LED technology revolutionized the automotive industry, and future advancements are expected to mirror this trend. Light that isn't visible to another aircraft or seacraft is considered wasteful. However, emerging laser technologies do offer a very promising solution, especially those that are used in the BMW headlights. The laser works by reflecting light off of a small mirror into a coloured phosphor, which then emits a specific colour of light. By focusing the laser along the horizontal plane, we could reduce beam spread and light spill into unintended areas. Although intense at the source, the laser does quickly fade over distance, making this a potential game changer for maritime navigation and safety lighting. Despite all of these emerging solutions in hand, we should not forget about simple yet effective lighting solutions. Light spill can be categorised into two main areas in the marine environment. The first being interior light spill, which is ambient light that escapes through windows or other openings, and exterior light spill, which refers to light fixtures on ship promenades, for example, like downlights or recess fixtures on the side of vessels or structures. Interior light spill can be reduced using motorised blinds wherever possible, and this can be agreed with interior designers to help with this issue. And then exterior light spill can be managed using timers, dimmers, or set to be warmer temperatures. Obviously, the most effective solution is to turn off lights when they are not needed. Despite all of these solutions, further research is required to fully understand the relationship between artificial light at night and marine life. Collaborative studies like the 2018 Lake Lab experiment in Germany highlight the importance of partnership between marine biologists and lighting designers. In this study, lighting designers use computer simulations to optimize lighting distribution within experimental enclosures, followed by extensive lighting trials. By fostering collaboration, we can better assess and mitigate the impacts of artificial light on the marine ecosystem. So I'm sure during this presentation, I've talked to you a lot about facts, studies, and hopefully some very interesting technology. But to conclude, I'd just like to highlight our key objective, which is we should be aiming for something like on the right. By using emerging and current technologies, lighting designers have a range of approaches at their disposal to achieve the identified targets to protect the marine environment during the design phase. Further research will help to inform necessary modifications in maritime regulations, and hopefully we can guide the next generation of lighting designers to create more eco-sensitive lighting designs. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Tammy. That's a very interesting paper, and thank you for that. Right, so I guess I'm passing it back on to Chris in the Oxford office. So, you ready to roll?
Good evening. Yeah, can you all hear us? Give a thumbs up if you can. Yes.
Can't see. I don't know. Yes.
Oh
I
yeah,
can-
yeah. Thank you.
can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah. Welcome to Oxford. We've had a few AV gremlins here, but we have managed to see all the slides at least, if not the speakers. Anyway, I'd like to introduce Jess Keates from Hawley, presenting her paper Beyond the Line, Applying Our Understanding of the Effects of Spatial Frequency and Contrast on Visual Discomfort. Jess is a senior engineer at Hawley, specialising in both electrical engineering and lighting design. She began her career at Hawley 6 years ago, initially focusing on electrical engineering. However, her growing passion for the creative and technical aspects of lighting design led her to pursue a master's degree in light and lighting design at the University College of London in 2020. In her current role, Jess works alongside both the electrical engineering and specialist lighting teams, where she bridges the gap between the two disciplines. She uses her electrical engineering background to provide practical insights into lighting designs, while also bringing the advanced knowledge gained from the lighting team to electrical projects. This cross-disciplinary collaboration enables her to create integrated solutions that meet both aesthetic and functional requirements for clients. Outside of her professional life, Jess enjoys running and frequently exploring new areas. She also channels her creativity through ceramics, attending classes where she crafts unique objects from clay. Over to you.
And thanks everyone for coming this evening. So this is my presentation, Beyond the Line, applying our understanding of the effects of spatial frequency and contrast on visual discomfort. I was going to introduce myself, but Chris has already done it. But essentially, a lot of what I'll be talking to you about tonight was research that took place during my master's at the UCL. So my research began looking into visual comfort as a whole. There are lots of different factors that contribute to visual discomfort. Lots of those are really well researched. So glare, chromatic properties, illuminance, flicker, etc. And because these are so well researched and understood, we have a really wide range of guidance available and regulations in place that give tools to designers to implement these into their work and create comfortable spaces. There are certain areas which I found to be less well researched. One of those is contrast. Contrast will be really familiar to most people, but in this instance, we're looking at it in terms of the contrast between a light source and the sort of surface treatments around. A concept which might be slightly less familiar to some people will be that of spatial frequency. So spatial frequency is essentially a measure of the composition of an image or visual scene, and this essentially measures the changes within an image, and this is measured in cycles per degree, and it's influenced by the sort of angle of the viewer onto that image. There's been lots of studies which have analysed how people are affected by spatial frequency. These studies take sort of stripe patterns similar to what you're seeing here on screen, and they analyse the visual discomfort of viewers for these stripe patterns. These have found that 3 cycles per degree is the sort of pattern which creates the greatest discomfort. So where are we at now? The sort of guidance available to us at the moment is, and that would sort of limit sort of spatial frequency within the designs that create, is that of visual interest. So with best practice applied, you would tend to sort of design lighting in a way where the light is applied to the task areas, but then you also want to sort of increase vertical illuminance and also add elements into the lighting which create visual interest. In reality, that doesn't always happen, whether that be because of budget constraints or sort of Cat A fit out. You often still end up with a kind of blanket of light within a space. And it's not all down to the lighting designers. Often these sort of fields of light are paired with dark interior treatments with the sort of aim of creating kind of dynamic or techie or modern spaces. In reality, this sort of just creates the perfect pairing for visual discomfort. But it's not all bad. There are many instances where we employ best practice, and these have really great outcomes. For example, here we have the Beecroft building in Oxford. I appreciate this is a smaller space, but it still applies in terms of what we're looking at here. So we have concealed lighting to the task area. So again, this sort of reduces the contrast because that light source isn't visible. We have linear lighting, but it's direct, indirect. So we're boosting lighting to the ceiling, and it's also contributing to vertical illuminance on the walls as well. And we have another example here. And this example really shows you that it's not an attack on dark ceilings entirely. There are sort of many instances where dark ceilings can be sort of executed well, particularly where these are sort of combined with low glare fittings. Also within the space, the lighting is broken up, so we have sort of downlights over the circulation area, and we're also sort of providing visual interest and boosting the vertical illuminance with shelf integrated lighting. One thing that I did notice throughout my research is that everything kind of comes back to nature. So our eyes have obviously developed over thousands, hundreds of thousands of years like exposed to the natural world. And so it makes sense that the sort of properties of nature are what our eyes are used to. Sort of issues that we face in the built environment that cause discomfort, you wouldn't tend to really experience. So issues such as glare, that's something you might experience with sort of sunlight in your eyes, like that little video we saw at the start, and maybe the reflection of light off water, and sort of flicker could be maybe the sort of light shining through the trees, but really you don't really see that much of it. And nature tends to follow the same sort of patterns. So we see natural images following a reciprocal law of 1/f. We also really see same patterns in terms of low luminance and sort of chromatic contrasts. So it makes sense that the greater we deviate from these natural patterns, the greater discomfort is experienced. And I also wanted to just briefly touch on that the things that we know to cause sort of visual discomfort and be visually uncomfortable sometimes can be the things which bring and create interest. So for example, in art, or in this instance here, sort of at a music concert, and artists such as James Turrell have created immersive experiences which challenge our perceptions of light and can be an amazing experience, but over a shorter period of time. So bringing it back round to my research, I wanted to understand if the sort of effect of spatial frequency and contrast or visual discomfort could be applied to interior lighting scenes. So in order to do this, I had 3 parameters, which were spatial frequency, contrast, and area. And I was looking at these in terms of sort of 3 different variations. So an extreme, which would be that sort of 3 cycles per degree that we know to be uncomfortable, and also a high sort of contrast. So the sort of black and white you can kind of see there. Then I looked at a more typical parameter. So what we generally see sort of in standard kind of office environments, a typical spacing, a typical contrast. And then I looked at a midpoint between the 2. So these sort of 3 variations, and the 3 versions of each variation created 27 images. And I invited participants to come and view these images. And from these images, they had to score them out of 10. So 0 was the score for experiencing no discomfort at all, and then 10 was extreme discomfort. And they also had to select from the red lettering on the screen here, those sort of associated word pairs, and so they had to choose from those what they sort of felt when they were looking at the images. So this is image X. I won't make you stare at it for too long, but this was the combination of factors which was anticipated to create the greatest visual discomfort. So we've got a wide width of 20 meters in the model. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that I've modelled all these parameters in Relux in order to sort of standardise them across the board. So yeah, 20 meters width, high contrast ratio, and this spacing of 3 cycles per degree. And then this was image G. So while none of these spaces are particularly appealing, this was the one which was anticipated to have the least discomfort response. So a slightly more standard spacing in the lighting, a lower contrast ratio, and then a sort of narrow width of the space. So the conclusion of the research, so I took all of the data and I analysed it using IBM SPSS, which spat out a load of information, and from that I found that 2 of the 3 variations, so spatial frequency and contrast, had a significant impact on visual discomfort. But who is this important for? Well, it's important for everyone really, but the impact it will have on people will vary between different groups. So, for example, people who have issues with photosensitivity, so people who have epilepsy or those who experience migraines. Some of the studies I was talking about earlier, they have shown that exposure to stripe patterns can cause epileptiform activity in the brain. Also, those with stigmatism, so that's essentially to do with the roundness of your eyeball, and where it deviates from a sphere, the light bends differently, which means where you have spaces where there's a high contrast and lots of that repeating, at the edges light bleeds, and that can cause and add to visual discomfort. And also for neurodiverse people, so it's estimated about 15% of the population is neurodiverse, and if we're creating these lighting designs which have patterns which are causing overstimulation, that's just going to add another factor to sort of the discomfort of those people within these spaces. And actually, when you think about all of those different groups I've described, and there will be more, that actually adds up to quite a large sort of proportion of the population. But how do we measure it? So this sort of formula on the screen is kind of one of the many different kind of elements of the Fourier series. So spatial frequency can be measured using Fourier transform. And for simple stripe patterns, this can be done quite easily. But as images become more complex, that becomes incredibly difficult to do, and is not really something we would be able to do ourselves. It would be incredibly time consuming. But the Fourier series, which essentially breaks up an image into discrete sine and cosine functions, can be sort of embedded into an algorithm, which will allow us to sort of process those images efficiently. So how do we get beyond the line? This and other research into visual discomfort applies across the board, but will have the greatest impact in certain instances, particularly in sort of commercial environments, sort of industrial, office, education, healthcare settings. And when we are designing lighting for these spaces, typically a lighting designer or electrical engineer will use a tool such as Dilux or Relux. And these tools are fantastic for allowing designers to quickly and easily analyse their spaces in terms of those other sort of metrics, so glare, illuminance, uniformity, and other sort of electrical metrics as well. And that allows the designers to understand if those the spaces align with the guidance available. So what if it's possible to expand this beyond the metrics that we already know, and expand it to allowing an understanding of whether or not the patterns that we're creating with the lighting in the space, if they're contributing to visual discomfort. And doing this also against so the patterns combined with the sort of the treatments within the space that the architect or interior designer has specified. This would also allow them to open up those conversations with those other design team members and kind of link the conversation around the surface treatments alongside that of sort of the energy intensity of darker surface treatments. Again, giving the tools to the designer to go beyond a repetitive layout of light with a program that they're already familiar with. However, this can't stand on its own. This needs to be paired with sort of increase in guidance in documents such as the SLL code to allow designers to assess their lighting designs in terms of the patterns, but also review this against guidance. So my proposal is to work with a software developer such as Dialux or Relux to kind of implement a computer algorithm which can assess quickly the spatial frequency of a design. And I've sort of shown this sort of mock-up of how I sort of feel like this would look. The sort of key to this being that it sort of integrates seamlessly within the software that we're already familiar with. And sort of hand in hand with this, exploring this topic further and coming up with quantifiable metrics which will allow the spatial frequency calculated in these softwares to be reviewed against guidance, empowering designers to sort of move away from repetitive lighting patterns and cater for sort of holistic visual comfort. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. And I guess we'll come back to Christina in London.
That really wraps it up for tonight. So I wanted to extend my heartfelt thanks for everybody who's attended the SLL Young Lighter competition. A special thanks goes to our finalists, Jess, Kate, Samuel and Tammy we have here tonight. Everybody actually, sorry, not just Sammy, sorry, online. I'd also like to express my gratitude towards my fellow judges we have in the room. We've got Elliot, we've got Roxana, Juan Ferrari here as well, and Teresa as well. Your efforts and commitment have been completely invaluable, so thank you for all of you.
Thank you.
My sincere thanks goes to my co-hosts as well, so Brendan online, David and Chris too, as well as the fantastic team behind the scenes, Fiona, Helen, Laura, Litza, Maria, Michelle and Sam. Your hard work and dedication have made this event possible. So thank you very much for that. During refreshments, you'll notice there's a QR code around and it will enable you to vote for your favourite presentation at the other venues. So we can't vote for you here, but around you can vote for the others. You can only vote for one finalist from the other 3 venues. This vote will count for 40% of the final decision, and the judges providing the remaining 60% of the vote. So look out for the QR codes wherever you are. As a reminder, the winner of the Young Lighter 2024 will be announced at the Light to Perform 24, held on the 13th of November at the XL, which is free to attend, as you probably know. For more information, please visit www.buildtoperform.co.uk/light-to-perform or simply scan the QR code. My voice is getting pretty weird. And I think that's all for that moment. Okay, so that's all that remains for me. So thank you for all of you for coming tonight from each of the different venues and for listening and watching for all of our fantastic presentations. I wish you all of the finalists the best of luck. So I hope you've enjoyed this event as much as I have. Like you said, this is the first time we've presented it in this format, so I hope you've enjoyed it. So go, have a wonderful evening, enjoy the refreshments,